Hola, buenos días, mi gente de A Toda Voz. Ya estamos aquí en su show A Toda Voz, donde una comunidad informada es una comunidad más fuerte. Bienvenidos, mi nombre es Samantha Ante. ¿Y qué tal? Ya es noviembre. Parece que fue ayer, que fue octubre. Ayer fue octubre. Pero no, se pasó rapidísimo el tiempo. Yo no entiendo por qué se nos está yendo tan rápido el año. Ya queda poquito para que se acabe el 2019. Ya vienen planes para el 2020. Y pues ya es noviembre y la nevada que nos tocó en Halloween, yo todavía estoy anodadada, que ni siquiera sé por qué nos tocó tan drástico el clima ese día. Pobres de los niños que les tocó el frío en Halloween y que no pudieron salir en uno de sus días favoritos. Pero bueno, pudimos ver también por las redes sociales que ese frío no detuvo a algunas personas de salir pues a pedir dulces. Entonces qué bueno por esas personas y qué bueno que también algunos lugares pudieron hacer su trick or treat, extenderlo todo el fin de semana. Entonces por alguna razón también fue bueno para los niños porque pudieron tener muchos más dulces ese día. Y pues bueno, estamos de vuelta, ya saben, con más de su programa en español por la estación 1340M y somos A Toda Voz. Ya les comenté, donde sabemos que una comunidad informada es una comunidad más fuerte. Y como ya saben, empezamos con nuestro segmento de un café bien conversado. Y pues hoy el programa it's gonna be a little bit different, it's gonna be un poquito diferente, porque, bueno, aparte de que estamos tomando otro tipo de café, hoy estamos tomando Intelligentsia Coffee. Muchísimas gracias, thank you Book and Bean, que se encuentran ubicados en Black Road, en la librería de Joliet, que está en Black Road. Ellos nos proporcionaron con nuestro café del día de hoy, está también riquísimo. Si no han ido a Book and Bean, tienen que ir. Tienen las mejores galletas de chocolate, se los juro. The best chocolate cookies I ever had, they have them at Book and Bean, so check them out. Y también, pues ya saben, estoy con mi Spanglish más avanzado el día de hoy, pues porque también eso es algo de las diferencias que vamos a tener el día de hoy. Hoy vamos a estar haciendo el programa in English and in Spanish. So today we're going to be doing the show in English and in Spanish, porque tenemos una invitada súper especial con nosotros. Tenemos a Rachel Ventura, que es candidata para representar al distrito 11 en el Congreso de Estados Unidos. Felicidades, we have Rachel Ventura, who is running for candidate to represent District 11 in the U.S. Congress. Thank you, Rachel, for being here. And I also have with me Estefanía Rodríguez. Tengo a Estefanía Rodríguez conmigo. Aquí la pueden ver, ahorita les enseño, no solamente quiero estar yo en la cámara. Tengo a Rachel Ventura y tengo a Estefanía Rodríguez. Ella es estudiante de periodismo de Joliet Junior College. Y hoy vamos a estar entrevistando a Rachel Ventura para que nos diga de sus iniciativas. We're going to be interviewing Rachel, so she lets us know about her initiatives and all of her ideas that she has. And she's a very powerful woman, so thank you, Rachel, for being here with us today. Gracias, Rachel, for being here with us.
Gracias and hola. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, thank you, and thank you, Stephanie, for being here too.
Gracias
Estefanía.
a ti, Samantha.
Ponte el más. Súbelo. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, muchísimas gracias. Y bueno, Rachel, we want to know a little bit about you. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I was born in Joliet. I was raised by two working parents. I went to public school. I then graduated from Benedictine University with a math degree, and I worked as an actuary for a few years in insurance before I left that industry and went back to school to become I ended up being a naturalist, but I got a biology degree and I worked as a pet nurse, and I was married to a man in the military, so we moved all around this country. I lived in 6 different states, and in 2016 I moved back to the Joliet area. I was shocked at the state of the city at the time, and I ran for office. It was the first time I had ever run for public office, and I wanted to make a change. I wanted to be the change I wanted to see in the world, and I did not win that race, but I had a very good showing. So when there was an opportunity to run for an open seat on the county board, I ran for that, and I won that in 2018. I wasn't expecting to run for Congress, especially so soon in my career. In February of this year, I went and spoke to our congressman about the importance of Medicare for All and signing on to the House bill. Unfortunately, he decided not to do that. He thought the American Care Act, or Obamacare, was the best thing, even though 29 million Americans are underinsured or without insurance. And I went 2 years myself without insurance, and so I know the fear and then the problems that causes, especially since bankruptcy in this country, the #1 reasons for healthcare right now, healthcare costs. And so, but that didn't get me right in the race at first. I was very disappointed with our congressman, but in June, when a group of activists rallied his offices on the Green New Deal, which we can talk about that a little bit later, but he's a scientist, and so when he turned that down, that really set off some red flags, and we launched an investigatory committee at that time, and we found out some of his votes weren't for the people, and some of the dollars that he's taken has dictated who he is. And so I'm running on a platform of passing the Green New Deal and providing Medicare for all, as well as closing the wealth gap in America, because Americans need a representation for those issues. They're crucial.
Exactly. So that is what motivated you the most to run for Congress to represent District 11?
Yeah, I mean, some of the things I saw at the county board, I mean, we've been doing a lot of work there, but there's bigger issues. So it becomes Band-Aid fixes on some hand. You know, when we look at some things like jobs and the wealth inequality in this country, those aren't things that the county can take on. So I was already seeing some of the limitations of being in a local position like that, how much we can help people and how we can make a government work for everyone. But when there's larger systems at play that are broken, it really holds us back at the local level. So I hadn't realized that this is where my path would take us, but here we are.
Here we are. That's amazing. And also another thing that I saw that really shocked me, you are refusing to accept money from big corporations, right? And why is that?
So that's part of the reason I believe that our system is broken, that there are too many people in office, whether it's in Congress, whether it's local levels, who only listen to either special interests or the wealthy donors, as opposed to listening to all of their constituents, the voters. And so the problem is, maybe when someone goes into office, their intentions may be true, but over time they see how hard it is to win an election, because more and more of these elections are costing millions of dollars. And so on one hand, you have everyday people who might want to make a change, but they're afraid to run because how are they going to generate $1 million or more dollars? But the other thing is, when you start taking those dollars from special interests, when they come and knock at your door and say, well, we've supported you financially all these years, and now we want you to vote in our interest, even though that interest might be against the rest of their constituency, that representative is now put in a difficult position. So by not taking that money to begin with, then you can always vote with the people's interests at heart.
Exactly. It's more genuine.
Yeah.
Correct?
And we need campaign finance reform. We need to get the big dollars out of politics and either go back to small dollar donations where everyone has an equal cap, including companies and PACs, or we need to have publicly financed elections.
Yeah, because I think that's controversial too. You don't know if that company is really supporting you, or if they just want you to, at the end of the day, just do what they tell you to do.
Correct.
And then we are being run by just rich people, and what are we doing? The working people are suffering.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. And then I was going to ask you a little bit about the immigration, because we know that as a Hispanic community, we live in an era where everything is kind of unknown, and we need to talk about it. So I would like to see, I would like to know, how would you like to see DACA being handled?
Yeah, so right now, DACA, we need to open up where new applications can be given. There are people who are brought to this country, and they know no other home than this one. Their families are here working hard, providing for them. The kids are going to school here. They are Americans, whether they're documented or undocumented. They're here in our communities, and we're all human. We're one race. So I do believe that we should have applications open, for new applicants, and I believe that we should continue to renew the applications that are already, every 2 years, as you have to apply. So we want to renew those so that people don't live in the fear of the shadows. But ultimately, we need a clear pathway to citizenship. It needs to be achievable. It needs to be clear-cut. And some of the lengths of time that the current, you and I were speaking about this too.
Yes.
But the length of time it takes from first you have to get your education, and then you have to apply for your green card, and then you have to work. Well, you work before you apply for your green card. It can take 8 to 12 years to become a citizen.
Yes.
And the reality is there's hurdles all along the way. And so what happens if you can't afford school anymore? What happens if you lose your job in those 3 years you're waiting for you to apply before your green card? I mean, there's so many bumps in the road, and so it's a very unforgiving system too.
Exactly.
So even though people have the best intentions, sometimes we don't make it achievable for people who live here. And in my opinion, where you are born should not dictate the future of your life. And so if you're here and you're working, you're among our community, we need to make sure that there's a way that you can be a part of that community and not live in the shadows.
Exactly, and also because some people here, they love this country as if it was their own, and I think it is needed to have something you can look at and see, okay, I need to do this and this and this, and this will take me to citizenship, where it's something unknown. It's not like a clear path. Everybody's situation is different, and that is what is confusing, right, Stephanie?
Yes.
What is your opinion on that?
So, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of youth, or because of language barriers, immigrants engaged. What do you want to see done about that? How can we get the community more engaged and informed on these issues?
Yeah, that's been a frustrating thing for me as well, to see that the people have the power, whether it's immigrants, whether it's just everyday Americans. There's so many people who don't vote. More than 50% of people in most elections don't vote. So to have the power and to not utilize that is frustrating, especially if there are concerns about, freedoms or rights that maybe are being taken away from groups of people. So to encourage them to get out, become educated, research about the candidates who are running, the issues at hand, and then turn out your friends and neighbors. So I've worked with Alicia Morales to try and turn out the Hispanic vote, to tell people they don't have to be afraid of their government. This is our right as Americans to have a voice, to elect our representatives, people who will be a voice for us. And so it is so important to get to the polls. And if we had more engagement of our voters, I think we would see a different representation in Congress. We'd see it locally here as well. But the problem is, so many times people feel that their vote doesn't matter. So why should I go out and vote then? The same people get elected, or there's no way to stop the system with all the millions of dollars invested in it. But the truth of it is, it's our voices and our votes that change that. And a lot of money is spent into letting you believe that, oh no, your voice doesn't matter, your vote doesn't matter, stay home. But really in that ballot box, every single one of our votes has equal weight. So it's so important that as a collective action of all of us going to vote, we have the power to change things.
No, yeah, definitely. And we saw what caused, the past 4 years we have been suffering a lot, seeing all these things that have been taking place due to people that couldn't go to vote, or that weren't informed, or didn't really take the time to find the candidates. But I think a lot of people are doing a great job in social media. You're doing a great job on social media too, and I think that is getting more people aware of the situation. That is helping too, and also being out there. I see that you are out in the community all the time, trying to get people. So hopefully that gets people more involved. Definitely. I would like to know if you think, what is your opinion? Do you think ICE should be pulled from states with sanctuary cities?
I think we need to abolish ICE across the country.
In general.
Whether it's sanctuary cities or not. I mean, obviously, becoming a sanctuary city puts a large target on you. But ultimately, it's an abuse of power. We can have customs at our borders. We've had those processes in the past. What we're seeing with ICE is just, them coming into our communities. They're causing fear. They're ripping families apart. It's just a process that needs to end. Our taxpayer dollars need to stop with the terrorism.
Yes.
I mean, we need to end it.
Definitely. Do you have a question for Rachel?
I do. So how do you think that your background, because we know that you were a biology major, how do you think that plays a role in your beliefs on the new Green Deal and what you're advocating for?
Yeah, so let's talk about the Green New Deal.
Yes.
So as many people are aware, we are in a climate crisis. As the carbons put into the air, our temperatures continue to rise, and that global warming is causing a lot of problems, both with our oceans, our temperatures, our crops. our weather. We're seeing that across the board, some of the destruction with the hurricanes. And so the Green New Deal actually solves two problems. It helps us with the climate crisis by getting carbon out of the air. It gets us off of fossil fuels by 2030 so that our temperatures can start coming back down. But the other thing that it does is it provides jobs for everyday Americans, and this is so huge. So it's a $16 trillion job package that would put Americans back to work, making a prevailing wage, so right now $15 an hour, but it would be indexed to inflation. So as inflation went up, your pay would go up. We wouldn't have to keep arguing about, well, should we increase the minimum wage or not? And what that's going to do is when everyday Americans are making good money, they spend that money back in the economy, right? They go to hair salons, or they go to restaurants, or they go out and buy things for themselves or their kids. And so by generating that strong middle class, we will have a better economy. So after, when FDR was in office and after the Great Depression and World War II, we had the New Deal. And it had things like the guaranteed jobs that would provide anyone who wanted a job could show up for training and learn how to do this job. Well, the Green New Deal is the same way. And those jobs that we're talking about is going to be getting renewable energy in place across this country. Currently, we only use about 8% of renewable energy. But wind, solar, hydropower, these are all technologies that we have that we just need to get out there and make the decision to get off of fossil fuels. And then the other thing that the Green New Deal allows for is for everyday Americans to have incentives to make their homes more energy efficient. So then we're not using as much energy. That's going to lower your bill. So whether it's insulating your walls or providing some type of solar panels on your home, it would allow people to afford that. And then the last thing is redoing our transportation with electric cars, with high-speed rail. And so again, jobs, building that infrastructure out. And so when we have good paying jobs, everybody else gets business opportunities, and then there's more money in the middle. So that's going to close our wealth gap. So even though climate crisis is an existential problem right now that we need to take very seriously and move forward on, it also is helping with the wealth gap, which we also are seeing is a huge problem, and it causes a lot of social issues. So to get directly to your answer, I have my first degree is in math, and then I went back to school to be a biologist, and I worked as a naturalist, and I worked restoring the longleaf pine forest and fighting for the endangered gopher tortoise, which is a keystone species that helps with other species, and we need to be stewards of our earth, right? This is our home, and so we need to take care of it, not just for the animals and the plants, but for each other, for the sustainability of the human race.
Yeah, and we see that now more young people are super interested on like getting into, solving climate change, because it is real. I don't understand why some people are like, that is not true, but we are seeing the news all the time with all of the things happening, especially in California with all of the fires, and we see the things that are going on, and I just don't understand why people are like, oh, climate change is not real, you don't gotta worry about it. But no, this is our home. We don't have anything else. We haven't thought of evacuating the planet and going to another, like Mars or any other planet. No, we haven't discovered that, so I think it's time to change it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think
There's no plan B. Yeah.
There's no plan B.
I think a lot of the people that say that are older folks, and they're not really that worried as much as the youth is, because we still have, more time here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So on September 20th, my campaign, as well as some local groups, helped co-sponsor a climate strike in Naperville. And we have 2 more climate strikes coming up. On the 29th, we'll be at Fox Valley Mall, and that is Black Friday, so that might be a little crazy if you guys want to get out there. And then on the 6th, so the 29th is the global strike, but because it comes after Thanksgiving, Sunrise Movement is hosting one on December 6th, just a week later. And so we'll also be hosting a climate strike there in Joliet, across from the Rialto at the Van Buren Plaza. And then we'll probably be marching, we'll be meeting at 2 o'clock, but by 3 we'll march over to City Hall and talk to them about that we don't want North Point here, which is a warehouse developer, 2,200 acres of our farmland taken up, and that would provide unfortunately cheap labor, more trucks on our road, more pollution, taking more of our water. And so right now we're asking people to contact their council members and contact the mayor and say, no, we don't want this project here. We need businesses that are going to keep the earth and the sustainability at the forefront. And we just need better jobs here. And
Of course.
so we're going to march to City Hall at 3 and say this is a part of the climate strike too, is making sure that when we are bringing things to our city, that we're being wise in spending our tax dollars on good businesses, but also taking care of people, making sure they have good jobs, and we're protecting our water and our air.
Yeah, exactly. We do need good jobs. Like, we see a lot of manufacturing jobs around this area, and I've worked at factories before. That was like my first job when I moved to the U.S. But it's just surprising to me how yeah, we do have workers' rights, but honestly, like, from my perspective, they're not being really pushed into those places. I don't know if there's something that you can think of that in your campaign you can
Yeah,
work
so
on
we're
that?
currently working with Warehouse Workers for Justice because
Okay.
of some of the working conditions. And this is historically what unions have provided. When unions first came about in this country, a lot of it was for people of color. Not just, white America, because what we found was that oftentimes people were exploited, and so they had poor working conditions or they have wage theft. Unfortunately, we're seeing those same things here. We have temp agencies that hire, maybe ex-felons, and, they have to take the jobs because they're having a hard time finding that work somewhere else, and so then they take advantage of that knowing that, and that's just not okay. So one thing is having places like Amazon and Walmart have unions there. That changes the whole dynamic of how much they're paying, what are the working conditions, how many hours can they work at a time, and then they have health care as well. So that's another big thing. But I guess that brings me to another point of one on my campaign is criminal justice reform. When someone has served their time, especially for a nonviolent offense, their records need to be sealed to employers and to landlords. They need to be able to assimilate back into our society too, and get good paying jobs, be able to live somewhere. And this is important so that they too can be a part of a healthy society.
Yes.
But when we have ability to exploit people, whether because they're undocumented or because they have a record, that doesn't work well for most Americans because it hurts those families. And at the end of the day, it's companies who are profiting off of that. And that's just not okay in my book.
No.
We need to treat people with respect. And a company back in the day used to care about the community. And now it's all about the bottom line. And human beings are not resources to be used up and tossed aside, and we need to have a society that reflects the respect that we want to treat each other with.
Yeah, and you even mentioned it as well, that you were at some point working 2 jobs. And we see that in a lot of people here. They work 2 jobs and it's still not enough. And especially because they are working from warehouse to warehouse or sometimes restaurants. And we don't see that money, lasting long. What do you think will be a solution for those issues?
Yeah, we have to start 2 things. We have to inject money back into our main street, our communities, and that happens through good paying jobs, right? The other thing, though, we need to make sure the rich are paying their fair share. So whether it's raising, scrapping the cap on the Social Security so that everyone is paying in. Currently, millionaires don't have to pay in after the first $133,000. We all pay our Social Security tax on that, but after $133,000, if you make more than that, you don't have to pay Social Security. So that's a problem right there. Having Medicare for all and expanded and improved system where everybody pays in, there's no deductible, no premium, no co-pays, and that's going to put money back in Americans' pockets. The savings when the government is setting those rates and not allowing predatory insurance companies to dictate our care and profit off of the sick and the dying, that's going to put money back in people's pockets, and the rich will have to pay their fair share as well. And so by doing that, we can have a system that does work for everyone. We can have college education paid for, or a trade school up through, from pre-K all the way through college, or trade school. We can see things like Social Security return, Medicare for everyone, health care for everyone. These aren't pie in the sky ideas. These are real solutions, and there are other countries who have different systems but similar and are able to make it work. There's no reason America can't make it work. It's the political will that we have in this country and listening to the wealthy donors versus listening to the needs of the people. We have the solutions. We need to elect people now to pass those solutions.
Exactly. I am all about that too. Well, we're gonna go on a quick break because we need to go on commercial, so this radio runs. So we're gonna go on a quick break and then we're gonna go back because les voy a contar todo lo que ha pasado ahorita que nos dijo Rachel para que no sientan que los estamos dejando atrás los que solamente hablan español. No se preocupen. Ahorita regresamos. Vamos a regresar Stephanie, Rachel y yo con ustedes. No se me vayan. Regresamos como en 5 minutitos. Los vemos.
This is good.
Oh, nice.
It is, right?
Bienvenidos ya mi gente de A Toda Voz, estamos de vuelta, estamos aquí con Rachel Ventura que nos estuvo hablando de todas sus iniciativas que ella está teniendo para su campaña. Ella está corriendo para candidata del distrito 11 para el Congreso, que es algo súper interesante. Necesitamos más mujeres en el Congreso que nos representen. Y pues ahorita les voy a decir rapidísimo, en resumen, las cosas que ella nos contó, y también Stephanie me va a ayudar un poquito a traducir lo que ella estuvo contándonos en el bloque anterior. Básicamente, pues le estuvimos preguntando acerca de qué es lo que ella pensaba. Pues en primer lugar quiero que sepan que Rachel Ventura, ella no toma dinero de corporaciones. Todos sus fondos para su campaña provienen de donaciones de personas o negocios pequeños, pero no de corporaciones, porque ella está, su ideología es que necesitamos ahora tener el apoyo de personas trabajadoras, porque sabemos que todos trabajamos muy duro en este país y las personas que son de corporaciones son ricos y la verdad no piensan en las personas de clase media o de clase baja. Ella piensa que es mejor tomar donaciones de personas. También hablamos un poco de inmigración. Sabemos que es un problema que a todos nos está preocupando. Ella cree que DACA debe de seguir. Ella apoya DACA y va a hacer todo lo posible si la eligen para pues tener DACA. Y también ella cree que es necesario que terminemos con ICE. No apoya la separación de familias. Ella piensa en hacer muchos cambios en la reforma inmigratoria para que tengamos como una lista de pasos para llegar a ser ciudadanos, que nos ayuden para poder ser ciudadanos. También habló de el Green New Deal, que es una iniciativa que va a abrir muchos empleos para poder salvar nuestro planeta. Y voy a dejar también a Stephanie que nos ayude un poquito en lo que ella escuchó que dijo Rachel.
Bueno, ella también estudió biología, así es que por eso es que cree tanto en iniciar el Green New Deal.
Sí, exacto. Y es que es interesante también, Rachel, ella tiene un degree en matemáticas, ha estado de todo en matemáticas, biología, ha estado trabajando con los animales también, entonces tiene mucho conocimiento en muchas cosas, y más que nada es alguien como nosotros, es mamá soltera de 2 hijos y ha apoyado a sus hijas como todos lo hemos hecho. Ha trabajado 2 trabajos, sus hijas han sacrificado también no estar tanto tiempo con ella, entonces es una persona real como nosotros, no es alguien que sea millonario y que no se vaya a preocupar por nosotros. Entonces básicamente eso fue un poco de lo que ella nos comentó en el bloque anterior, pero de todas maneras vamos a estar traduciendo más adelante lo que nos va a seguir contando Rachel. So Rachel, muchas gracias por estar con nosotros. By the way, le di pan de muerto. You like the pan de muerto? Yeah. She liked pan de muerto. So yeah, we were drinking coffee and eating pan de muerto. So that's really good. Because this weekend, I don't know if you know, it's Día de los Muertos.
Day of the Dead.
The Day of the Dead. Mm-hmm. So I was like at the bakery. I was like, do you have pan de muerto? And they had. So I was like, okay, that's really good. I'm going to bring some.
How much do you know about Day of the Dead? Because a lot of people think it's Mexican Halloween, but that is not the case.
My kids love the movie that came out.
Coco?
Yes, Coco.
Which is being pulled from Netflix, by the way.
Why?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just because every few months, they just pull different movies, and that's one of them.
Yeah, well, I'll say I don't know that I knew much about it before the Coco movie. I mean, I know that the face paint, on the 1st of November.
The Catrines.
But
Catrinas,
yeah, but that movie was, I mean, I didn't realize it was a family movie, and I happened to go see it with my family. Oh my God, we were all in tears. It was such a beautiful movie, and the idea that immortally we are all together as one. I don't know, it's bringing tears to my eyes. But yes, I learned a lot about that. I don't know how accurate Disney movies always are, but I guess that was a Pixar movie, but
It was pretty good. I don't know what you thought, Samantha, but
No, I liked it. I really did. I think it really talks about like a little bit about our culture. It gives more understanding to more people, and also because Dia de los Muertos, I was reading about it too. Because you always learn something new. Like you always learn. So I was reading that it actually came from Spain. So it's one of the cultural stuff that Spain gave Mexico when they invade us, and then they started changing, and obviously everything changes. So now it become a Mexican celebration, but it actually came from our Spaniard roots.
That's interesting. So Ventura, that's in my family. That was a married name for me. So my kids are Venturas, and it's a Portuguese name.
Oh,
and
okay.
So, yeah. So people often ask because there is a Mexican Ventura.
Ventura, yeah.
And so it's interesting that it came from Spain. Yeah. So my ex's family is from the Azores.
Okay,
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I was gonna ask you like, where does Ventura? where does Ventura come from? Yeah, but that's good that it came, organically in the conversation, because I didn't know how to ask. Sometimes it's just like.
Yeah, no, my maiden name is McReynolds, so I'm Scotch-Irish. But,
okay, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, my girls don't look at that, and that's what the beauty of what I see in our youth is that, they look at everybody as the same, and that's how my parents taught us.
Of
and in
course.
the 80s, there was a big push for the melting pot, and so, I don't know, for me, it was hopeful that maybe we could rise above some of the racism, and I see it best in our youth, when they go to school and they don't care where people's backgrounds are from, where they're born, what their skin color is. So that's uplifting to me. What is sad is when our leaders are out there promoting hate and racism.
Yeah, and I think it's when people go towards high school when they start to be more like seeing the racism and stuff. Because I remember when moving from Mexico to the U.S. in high school, there was like tension too. You didn't know if it was okay for you to say that you were from another country. You didn't know, I didn't know how people were gonna see that,
Yeah.
And I think towards high school is when you start, judging people more from where they come from and whatnot. But I think promoting, respect and inclusion is super, super important.
Yeah, celebrating our diversity, I mean, it's not only is it huge, but it's heartwarming. I don't know. Maybe it's because I like to eat food, so
Yeah.
I love learning about other people's food
Me too.
and culture. After college, I moved to Los Angeles, and I lived out there for 4 years, and I met so many different people, and I got to enjoy Persian food and Indian food and sushi and so many things that I didn't grow up here eating. I ate Mexican food and I ate American food, the typical Midwestern steak and potatoes.
Yeah.
But when I moved to a big city, every aspect of food, Vietnamese, pho, whatever you wanted to eat was at your fingertips. I loved it. And so and then I started learning more about people's cultures, why they cook the foods they cook, what type of climate they live in, and what type of plants grow there. I don't know. To me, it's interesting.
No,
and
it's
you
fascinating.
grow as a person,
Yeah.
when you celebrate people's diversity. So I don't understand why people are so closed off to other cultures, other fashions, other ideas. I don't know. I think it's better to keep an open mind, and if you disagree, that's okay. But I mean, the respect aspect of it is huge, and we need to have respect brought back into both our government and our communities and just everyday life.
I
Yes.
think that it's just sad how people forget how much those different cultures, the immigrants, contribute to our economy and our society.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm from Salinas, California. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but that's where most of our,
Migrant
food,
workers
yeah,
are.
our migrant workers. My dad actually worked at Fresh Express. He wasn't out on the fields or anything, but he would pack lettuce. And it's like, where would we be without them?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I was just looking at a video of farm workers getting celery, and they're so quick about it. Like, I'm like, wow, and they're, working under these temperatures, and it's just, I don't know, I just feel for them, and but I thank them. We need to always be grateful and know where our food is coming from,
Well, and that's something that, when we talk about what does it mean to be an American, you have people coming to this country who love this country, who are working hard, who, have belief in a higher being, who are educating their youth. What else is it to be an American? Pride in your country, pride in yourself, pride in your family. I mean, isn't that what it means to come to this country and work hard? So, I don't know. I mean, to me, there's never been like a litmus test per se, but it's like, I don't know, there are immigrants who seem to love this country more than some of the Americans who are born here.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, I think we need to treat each other with respect, and I like the fact that there are immigrants who still believe in the American dream, you know, that they can come here and change their futures. You know, I think there are Americans here who are born here and they don't believe in the American dream, you know, and they're very cynical, and I don't blame them. I look at our government too. I look at the economy and how money is being sucked out of the middle class and not being put back in, and so you know, it's easy to be a cynic, but at the same time, it's like, look here, these people can give you inspiration, right? They're coming here saying it's still worth it, it's still worth fighting for it and providing for your family, and you know, I think we should honor that.
Thank you for thinking that, because not a lot of people have that mentality. We see that more than like a few years back. But I think it's great that now people are being more open and giving us a chance. That's all we need as immigrants. Like, give us a chance. We are here to work, and we don't want your welfare, because that's what most people think that immigrants are here for. And in reality, no, because also the welfare, when you go to apply for stamps, they ask you for a social security number. So I don't understand how people think that we are taking advantage of that, if in reality, if you don't have a social security number, you cannot do 99% of the things that Americans can. So that's really, like, huge. But I was going to ask you, because now we see education is a big, like, we need education. And we see what is happening in Chicago with the teachers and stuff like that. And I think that we need to be aware of that situation and let the audience know about that situation. But how will you empower educators to develop flexible environments that recognize that learning happens in different places at different times and in different ways inside and outside school?
Yeah, well, I think first I want to give a shout out to the teachers in Chicago. You know, they have a tentative agreement. I'm not sure if by today they've worked out all the fine details, but from what was being reported, it was a good deal. So
that's
kudos to those teachers. We went up there Monday of last week and marched with them. Our own teachers here in 86 are working without a contract. So please support them. Hopefully the school board and them can make a agreement soon. But yeah, we need to support the working class. And we're seeing that whether it's auto workers, teachers, nurses, people are fighting back. They're using their voices. So keep doing that. That's what we need to do. Put some pressure on. But yeah, so in the classroom, so the first thing I would say is I am not a fan of Common Core. And as a congresswoman, I would redo our education system.
Please.
Common Core was put together by testing companies and publishing companies. And then after they decided what they were going to have in that process, then they brought teachers in to test it out to get their approval. But what we are seeing is that in 4th and 8th grade, some of the results, they're actually lower than what they were before they implemented Common Core. So once again, this is a way for a company or several companies to profit off of the education in our system. And education just does not need to be a profitable system. We obviously see our teachers are not profiting that much off of it. So we need to change that first and foremost so that education can be an individual assessment. I mean, the idea of this No Child Left Behind, you know, it aspires from the fact that we all want to have good education for our kids. But it doesn't happen by checking a box or making sure this test is done. It happens by making sure that kid first and foremost wants to learn, providing an atmosphere that child wants to be in and be able to learn. And then the other thing about that is we need to make sure that we are saying every career is okay. You know what I mean? So right now our system is geared mostly towards math, science, and reading. So if you want a career in math, science, and reading, kudos, the education system is probably going to work for you. But if you don't, if you want to go into singing or broadcasting,
acting
or dance, you know, or sports, I mean, there's so many skills that we have, and we don't, elevate those now in our school. And so we need to send the message that if that's your skill set, you are a value to our community too. You know, so bringing arts back into our school, bringing gym back into our school, bringing dancing and music and
the arts are needed. Creativity is really needed.
Yes, and especially at those young ages.
Exactly.
When my kids started kindergarten and they were testing them, I was like, what in the world are you doing? Like, so it's no wonder so many kids nowadays hate school. You know, it's like it's constant work to them. The other thing is we need to make sure we're assessing our students. So if they're having a hard time in one area, we don't need to throw another test at them. We need to sit down and say, what's going on here? That can't happen in a classroom of 36 kids and one teacher, right?
No.
So I've worked as a substitute teacher. It is hard work. It is exhausting work. It's rewarding, but time and time again, you're the one as a teacher providing all of the materials. You're providing the lesson plan. You're providing all of the care and sometimes behavioral stuff as well, right? The discipline. So we put a lot on our teachers. I don't know why we don't pay our teachers more. I would definitely like to see our teaching salaries in the United States change significantly.
Yes.
Because it's the future generations. So smaller classrooms for sure, a system that actually invests in that child, says that it's okay to think outside the box and have skills, because we're going to need singers and dancers. We're going to need, artists. We're going to need doctors and lawyers and laborists. And, I know when I went to school, we had workshop, we had home ec, we had welding. There were options that if you wanted to think outside the box and go into other programs, you could. I think we need to bring a lot of that stuff back so that people feel valued.
Yeah, and also funding for schools, because some schools don't have the funding, especially here in the area as well. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of my friends that work in schools, and they're like, yeah, well, sometimes we need to pay out of pocket to buy the supplies for students, or like sometimes we need to also act as a counselor because the student has issues at home. It's hard. It's like really sad to see those issues.
and I would like Congress to work with the states to make sure there's equitable funding for that. We see it here in Illinois that our property taxes are very high. And part of the reason for that is only 14% of our income tax that goes into our state budget is used to fund our schools. In other states, like Hawaii, uses 100% of their budget to fund their schools. Most states are around about 70%, which means that most states are only paying about 30% of their property value to kind of supplement their schools. Versus here, the majority of, only 14%, so that leaves the rest of it to the local entities to bring those property taxes into paying for our schools. That's a broken system. Then you're going to have affluent areas that have an abundance of money because their property taxes can bring in a lot more money, versus areas like here where, we might have a lot of homes, but, if our homes are not valued as much, and that money doesn't go as far, and so you need to increase the rates for everybody in order to pay for the schools. So that's not okay. So we had a system in this state where it was based more on our income tax and in the state budget instead of on our property taxes at the local level, then we would have more equitable schools across the board. So this is something that first and foremost our state needs to change their funding platform, but second of all, the federal government can help work with them so that when our dollars do come to these schools, whether Title I or otherwise, that it's going to the fact that these schools are already equitable as best as possible before we invest that money in there. So yeah, we need to change our whole education system.
Yeah, it might be a hard, a hard thing to do, but it's not impossible. But I feel like people don't want to do the change,
Again, that political will. And we're seeing, though, so two of the top nominees for president who are running right now are Warren and Bernie. And they both have education platforms that fund pre-K through college.
Yes.
And so that's something else that we need to change the political will in Congress, but also in the White House. And so, getting a progressive leader in office to do something like that provides us the ability to have education.
Yeah. Exactly. To make it, education is part of the American dream. And that's something that sometimes is really hard for people. I see it myself. Like, I see education as like a dream that I'm trying to get, but it's because it's so expensive, sometimes you see it impossible. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Stephanie is a student too, so what is your opinion about like higher education?
It's just really sad how, like we were saying earlier, a lot of people don't want to go because of the fact that it's expensive. And a lot of people actually believe that it kills creativity too. It's just overall the system right now, it just doesn't motivate people to want to go to school,
Yeah. Yeah, and because also like some people are like, oh, but what is gonna be your career? And then again, if you tell them something creative or something out of the common careers, they're like, oh, but how are you gonna make it? Like you need to think of the plan B, and then that's what it makes people, and that's why we have like 84% of people in America don't like what they do.
Yeah.
They are unhappy in their workplace, they're stressed, and we see a lot of stress and anxiety going on.
And what's the message that sends to that person? How do they feel valued? If their skill set is an A and all you're ever doing is paying for B, it's very frustrating for that person as well. So yeah, and I think the other thing about how, education right now is the debt that's coming out of it. So I do think that we need to have some type of forgiveness for our kids who have loans right now.
Yes.
Part of the reason it's an economic stimulus to invest money into these families or young adults who are just starting off, because they're not buying cars, they're not buying homes, they can't afford it, right?
Yeah.
And so and then there are going to be generational wealth gaps because they can't have the things that are needed in order to get their footing, in order for them to have their own business or work a profitable job where that money's not going all back into student loans. And again, that's a system where only the rich are profiting off of that. So we bailed out the banks during the housing crisis, but here, look at our young America who can't get a footing, who are still living at home, who are taking jobs in their field, and they're still not paying enough to even pay for their loans. I mean, the whole system is broken, and we need to make sure that it's the everyday Americans who can live and provide for their family.
Yeah, and I think part of it as well is people are complaining about millennials, and they're like, oh, they're lazy and stuff like that. But no, because they don't see what like really is going on. Some people, like you said, they're holding on to buying a house because they first need to pay for their loans. And then also in jobs, we are looking at sometimes they are asking you for 5 years of experience, but then you don't have those 5 years of experience because you were going to school doing that. Of course, there's internships and other opportunities, but it's hard. It's hard out there.
Well, and Stephania touched on this too, that sometimes an elderly generation might have a certain perception of, and you just said it down too, oh, they're lazy. Well, it's easy when you can think that if you say, well, here are the standards it was in 1950, right? You could have one person in the household working. They could provide enough money for the entire family. You might have a stay-at-home parent who maybe had a hobby or went back to work at their own accord, and then you had even more wealth in the family, or they stayed home and take care of the kids. So, to them, they're like, oh, well, college wasn't that expensive. You just go off, you do that, you get a job. But the reality is that is not the system we live in today, where inflation has not kept pace with the pay that we see in America. And we have rolled back things like pensions, health care, so those are all things now that I, as a single mom, I have to pay for my own 401k or retirement. I have to put money into my own healthcare system. I have to make sure I'm paying all of the bills on a single family income. And I work 2 jobs, and neither of my jobs pay $15 minimum wage. So these are things that we're living in America. So yeah, I work my butt off. It's nonstop working, and I never get ahead. I'm constantly spinning the wheels. The housing crash. For those 10 or 12 years that our stock market was recovering, my retirement account didn't go up. So what does that mean now for future, when I want to retire? Yeah. So like I said, I guess it's when people have that perception that this is the 1950s and we have 30 to 40% unions who are all making good paying jobs and that there's money in the middle class, but the reality is we don't have that today. So you can't have those assumptions, and I think that's where that idea of, oh, they're lazy, they just don't realize how much the world has changed and how hard it is to get ahead.
Yeah, like they tell you, go to school, but they don't tell you, they don't explain you how the budget, how like your loans are going to affect you, or like how to make payments, or what, like how to choose a good loan for you, and also some parents are not aware. They didn't go to college, so they don't know how to help first generation college students. Sometimes as a first generation college student, you have to make your own research on what is more convenient for you.
Going off of all of that, battling all of these issues, and then at the same time, we have more people coming out speaking on mental health. Where do you stand with that? What are we going to do to advocate for that more?
Yeah, so I have two thoughts about that. The first is obviously by passing Medicare for all, it will have expanded care into health care, even eye and ear, stuff that isn't always covered under traditional health care. So having the care needed, but also one of the things we're seeing is this social breakdown because of what we're talking about, this wealth gap, this ability to not get ahead, to not feel valued in education or your life work. And so you have this constant stress that is weighing on you. We don't teach coping mechanism anymore. You know, many families are working 2 jobs, so at a young age, we're not even able to spend the time needed with our youth to tell them, oh, you know, it's okay that you fail. This is how you build yourself back up. This is what you learn from your failures. This is how you deal with those emotions you're having. You know, not every family has the time to do that because they're working 2 jobs, you know what I mean? And so we're seeing this breakdown over time. And so we get to the point, you know, maybe you're in high school or college or afterwards, and you find yourself depressed. You find yourself anxious. You know, maybe you have more of a, you know, a very serious mental defense to try and make yourself feel like you're a valued person. And I think we're seeing this breakdown of what a wealth inequality actually does to social issues. And so we have to have the ability to cope. We have to teach those skills. We have to have some support networks, you know, family, community to turn to. And we need to treat mental illness like any other illness. It's a physical thing. So if you get a cold, I'm not going to voluntarily lock you up, right? Yeah. I may avoid you, so I have washed my hands a few times. Well, and we need to think about mental illness being the same way, right? I mean, this is an immune system effect to our brain, that we can't handle the stress anymore, and so this is, you know, the process it goes through to try and heal itself. And so if we provide care, whether it's, you know, through medication, whether it's through counseling, or whether it's through, you know, a lot of talking the issues out. But many Americans, I think there's that stigma, right? I can't say I'm depressed. I can't say I'm anxious because, you know, my employer might fire me. Yeah. My family might think there's something wrong with me. You know, my significant other might leave me. And so we need to get past that and say, you know, not every mental illness is a lifelong. But they're just like diabetes and cancer, you know, these are bigger issues that you have to deal with on a daily basis. There are mental illnesses you have to deal with on a daily basis too. Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
So I think just by having, first and foremost, those conversations and saying, it's okay to admit that you're going through something right now and get the help you needed, but then we have to provide that help, and currently our current system just doesn't. So having Medicare for all, where everybody has health care, especially mental health care, could really change things in this country.
Yeah, and I have a question about this. This is super important, and we know that 100 people in America are dying due to gun violence each day. Which is horrible and it's nerve-wracking. Honestly, like every time me and my husband are outside just talking and then we have a car passing by, like we do get anxious because we have heard a lot of like drive-by shootings. It's not safe anymore. Yeah. So what is your opinion on that? What would you do?
Yeah, so I've definitely seen gun violence here in Joliet for sure. And I think that, you know, the news, obviously, when we have school shootings and some of these mass attacks, that's what gets the headlines. But the reality, it's suicide is the number one reason for gun deaths. And so some of the things we're talking about here, this wealth gap, this not feeling valued, not knowing what to do, having no coping mechanisms or support
segregation.
Yeah, so that's
important.
Like that's a huge issue of like, how do we lower the gun deaths? How do we lower gun violence? Well, first we have to change our entire system so that people feel valued. But there are some other practical things too. We can do closing loopholes for purchasing weapons. I also am an advocate for training. You know, I was a JROTC student, and so I got to shoot an M16, and I have a FOID card currently. I don't own any weapons. Yeah. But one of the things I took away from that is, you know, we learned about the weapon, we learned about safety, and we learned that guns are a tool of killing, of murder. And so we respect it as such. And I think we need to, if we're going to have guns in this country, first and foremost, we need to educate people, which means they need to go through maybe some type of training program. And much like getting your driver's license, you should have to take a test. You should have to be able to be licensed for this, not just apply over line and then, you know, 3 days later you have a gun. going through a process like that, first, it upholds our Second Amendment right, but it also slows down the ability if someone is going through something and they're looking to commit suicide or some other act of violence, going through a 6-month training program to get your licensing, things might change in that time. But also, a red flag might go off, or a trigger might go off during that time to show this person that maybe either that person or the system, that maybe they're not right for a gun at this point in their life. And so I think we could really change things by having different processes in place.
Of course.
So, but at the end of the day, even if we banned, I know right now assault rifles is a big thing to ban that, and until we get a handle on what's happening in this country, I can understand why that needs to happen. But at the same time, if you don't change the system, then the manufacturers will just make more guns. It will, skirt the law, and then they'll be on the street, and then people will go buy those guns, and the problem will continue. So we have to address this problem differently. There's not going to be one answer on this. It's going to be a system-wide change that we have to invest in people and make sure that they feel valued, so they don't want to go shoot their neighbor, that they don't want to shoot themselves.
Exactly. And also I think it's really important that a person goes through a mental health exam or an examination before they get a gun, because you're here, you apply for a license, you get it, but they didn't check anything about your personality, how you cope with things. Are you abusive? Are you a narcissist? They really need to do an evaluation.
And when you get your FOID card, there are questions like that on there, but it's just
people can say no.
It's a self-questionnaire,
yeah.
So again, if you have a system where, much like when you get a driver's license, you have to go in front of someone and drive a car, right? So if you had to go in front of someone, answer some questions, shoot in a shooting range, right? Talk about the safety, take a test on safety. It's not unheard of to have those things. And then, like you said, someone is looking at you when you're answering that question,
Exactly.
So it's a different mentality what we have today, but I think there are practical changes that we need to see.
Yeah, we have a question for from the audience. They're asking, what do you think about kids from ages 11 to 16 smoking marijuana or juuling or vaping?
So I think that they need to wait till they're 21. That is the law, and there's certain health reasons for that. So, I am an advocate for legalizing marijuana and decriminalizing it first and foremost. But there are some health ramifications to smoking anything, especially with vaping right now, as companies are changing what's in their product or how their product is delivered. We're seeing deaths. So it is advised that you wait till you're 21 and follow the law of Illinois, which is January 1st is the first time you'll be legally able to smoke recreational marijuana in this state. And so I advise to follow the law, but also know what the health implications are. I tell my own kids, don't smoke. It's going to hurt your lungs. It's going to shorten your lifespan. And nicotine is highly addictive. So I guess that's my PSA on that.
Yeah, what is your opinion? Well, I know that you said that you're an advocate from legalizing marijuana for recreational use and also decriminalizing it. But what do you think about, because we have seen on the news as well, counties not agreeing on that. What is your opinion?
Okay, so I do sit on the Will County Board currently, and we'll be voting on this, and I have not made it a secret at all where I stand on it. I will be voting yes to enforce it here through zoning. I also sit on the Land Use Committee, so I trying to work with the rest of the committee and our staff to make sure that we have our zoning laws ready to go. Of course, I sit with there's 26 members. Right now we're down one, so there's 25 members. So 24 other people have to make this decision as well. I am hoping that our county, Will County, will approve. I guess approve is not the right way to say it, because it's legal as of January 1st. The state has legalized this. Whether you opt in or out, that has nothing to do with whether or not you can smoke marijuana on January 1st. What it means is whether you can buy it in that county or that city. And so the thing that they're opting out of is having dispensaries. Now, Joliet passed the tax, but they haven't decided on their zoning. In Will County, what I would like to vote for is to have the zoning be the same as what we currently have for medical marijuana. So commercial areas, industrial, we can grow it in agricultural areas. So it's not going to be in your residential. You're not going to walk out your door and there'll be a pot dispensary right there, right? So so I'm advocating for that. And if the county does nothing on January 1st, it will be allowed. So the best thing to do is for us to tax this so that money is then coming in so that we can enforce it, right? I mean, think people are concerned about, oh my God, I don't want all this marijuana in my area. But when they opt out, what they're opting out of is the ability to enforce it by bringing in tax dollars that then can go to their local law enforcement, right? So to me, this is a no-brainer. Of course you should stay opted in. Of course you should tax it. And of course you should enforce it and set your zoning laws accordingly. I hope that there are other local governments listening to what I'm saying so they understand by opting out, it's not some political statement saying you can't smoke marijuana in that town. Yes, you can. It's legal in the state. Yeah.
How much money do you think it'll bring to the state or the county?
You know, it's going to vary because some areas have opted out, and if Joliet and the Will County stay opted in, we will probably see more money than other areas. But, you know, it's hard to say because so many other states have also legalized it. There may not be the big rush. So Colorado had, you know, they brought in billions of dollars because but they legalized one of the first states then in Washington. And so they had a lot of people who were visiting there, tourists coming in.
Yeah.
But we have some great tourist opportunities here as well. So maybe people will come in and see the Rialto or see our prison and then, you know, smoke a joint.
Yeah. Chill. Oh my friend was telling me, like, oh my God, it's going to be just as Canada because Canada made it legal too. And, well, it smells everywhere. It's like, okay, well, that's fine. It's just, you said responsibly, you know?
Yeah. So I lived in Washington when they passed it. And I'll tell you, it was a little crazy those first few months because they didn't have the laws in place and people didn't know how they were going to enforce it and whatnot. But since several states have done that, so we do know, okay, we need to have zoning, like we're more prepared for it in the state. They're also working, money has become a little bit of an issue, and even the House is looking at passing federal laws that allow for that money to go into banks. And so I think we're going to continue to see it moving more towards legalizing it for the entire country. But it has to be responsible. You can't smoke a cigarette standing right outside a door. You can't smoke a marijuana cigarette right outside a door either.
Of course, yeah, there's always rules.
Yeah, there are rules about smoking in the privacy of your home. And that's to protect for other people's health as well. So just like common courtesy, you're not going to go to a movie theater and start smoking.
Exactly.
It's no different with this. And we saw that in other states as well. Every once in a while you'd see someone, you know, maybe out and about smoking. You just politely remind them, well, there are other smoking laws that you need to adhere to as well.
And also because obviously there's kids around and some people that's their main concern. That's why they don't agree with having dispensaries around because of the kids. They don't want to expose them to that.
And that's why it's important to have your zoning, have your enforcement, so that if someone is breaking the law, it's a law, just like any other law. You should enforce it as such. But when you don't have those tax dollars to pay for it, then it falls back on every other taxpayer. So if you're going to smoke marijuana, it's a user tax, right? That's a better tax to have than maybe a regressive tax that hits the rest of us.
Perfect. Another question from our audience. And this will be one of the last ones because we are over the time already, but it's fine because we're having a great conversation. They want to know if you support the idea of a universal basic income.
You know, I would like to see a lot more information on that.
Yes.
I do know that there are some presidential candidates who are running on that. I know that this has been controversial in other countries, but some other countries have tried that. Right now, I think that there's a system where if we are all paying into our government and have services, like we talked about education, our roadways, our libraries, you know, all of those things are things that we all profit off of or enjoy. And so I think that we can get back to that without, adding socialism and capitalism together in an equal balance.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that would be okay, but again, we have to value a worker for where they stand. And I think that's where some of the argument for the universal basic income comes from is, if you're an artist, we don't value that right now in this country, so how can we do
more
that?
A lot of artists do their work for free. We see a lot of actors, I'm in acting, I love acting, so most of us do everything for free. We want to do that because we have the dream that we're gonna start for free, but then eventually it will come out to be something that we can get paid for. But it's hard. It's hard for the arts. Also, we see like videographers, photographers, painters that they're doing things for free, I mean.
And I think that is because it's, we're continuing to suck money out of the middle class, so there isn't money to pay people to do these things.
Exactly.
I don't think it's because people don't want to pay them. It becomes out of necessity. Well, I can barely pay my bills, let alone pay someone to paint my house,
Yeah.
or paint a picture for me. But I think that if we inject that money back into the middle class, we're going to see a change in a lot of stuff. But I'm not closed-minded. I will hear people out. I will look at what that means. What are the pros and cons to that?
What do they think?
And that's one of the things as a representative. I don't pretend to know everything. I'm okay saying, I don't know. Show me some information on it. Let's have a discussion about this. I know people like, I don't want to get anything for free. Well, you're not. We all pay taxes.
Exactly.
Where do we spend those tax dollars is the question.
Where is our money going?
Exactly. And that's where that voting comes into, because you get to decide with your representatives who you vote for, where those tax dollars go. And so, send me some information.
Awesome. Yeah, I will definitely contact the person and have some information sent to you. Any other questions that you have, Steph, for Rachel before we close the segment?
I was just thinking, with immigration reform, we're eventually, hopefully, we're going to have an influx of immigrants coming into this country. How do you think environmentally will be impacted? And going along with that marijuana deal here, do you think it's going to be, what do you think is going to be of the country with all of that being said?
Yeah, I think that our country will get to the fact that we legalize marijuana as a whole country. For the other aspect of it, I think that we need to separate immigration from what's happening at the border. First and foremost, we need to close the detainment camps. No one should be put in cages.
Yeah.
That's an atrocity. The money that has been fueled down there, including taxpayer dollars for these profit camps, is just not okay. It needs to be closed down. Ankle bracelets, some type of services, much like we have homeless shelters that feed and house people who don't have homes. But they can come and go, right? They're free to come and go. And so we need to move into more of a system of that regard. However, we don't have the money right now. That's one of the things we're seeing. So they're trying to funnel all of this through immigration funding, and then we don't have, the resources there for people who are waiting for their green card or going through the process that we have existing. So as we see climate affect countries, whether it's Syria or South America, we're going to see more and more of this. In fact, we're going to see people shifting, even in our own United States, coming off of the board from the water, either leaving countries or moving inward to Illinois, where it may be more of a safe ground. So we're going to have to start rethinking, what does it mean to be an immigrant, right? You may not be crossing, you might be crossing a state border and people are kind of shoring up saying, I don't know, we don't want any more people in our state. So we have to really be proactive about what we're doing with the climate crisis right now, so that we can prevent some of these things, but also the people who are coming here, they need to be given amnesty. They need to be given human rights as well, and so that we can make our way through the investigation process. And we're going to need to fund that differently than the immigration. So what does that mean? Maybe that means putting sanctions on these countries who have this political upheaval or these gangs, and having that money come in, and so that we can afford for the human rights that we need to give people, give them the investigation they need, speed that process up so it's not taking 3-4 years to look at why they're coming to this country or through our country, This may not be their last origin, out of necessity they're here, they're asking for our help. So we need to make sure that we are treating them the way we would want to be treated if we were in that case, and make sure we have a system that can handle that.
Awesome. So I think we are done with the show, but I would like you to let them know about your social media platforms so that they can look you up, and then when is your next canvassing, so that people are interested, they can contact you.
Yeah, we are out every single weekend. I'll be leaving here to go knock doors, so please come out. We are a people-run campaign, so we would appreciate your dollars. You can go to electventura.com. I'm also on social media, facebook.com/electventura, or on Twitter at electventura. And we phone bank every Monday nights in Joliet, and we're out knocking doors pretty much every day. So please go to our website, sign up to volunteer. There is a donation link there. We ask that if you liked what the platform I'm running on, to at least donate $11 for the 11th district.
Awesome.
Those $11 go a long way.
Perfect. Yeah, especially if you are not taking money from corporations.
Correct.
Yeah, we need to donate that. Well, I appreciate both of your help. Thank you, Steph, for being here too. I appreciate it. Thank you, Rachel. And we are done with A Toda Voz, mi gente. Muchísimas gracias por haber estado con nosotros. Ya se nos acabó la primera hora. La segunda hora va a ser pura música porque yo me tengo que ir. Pero muchísimas gracias por habernos acompañado. Les dejaré toda la traducción de esta entrevista en un video separado para que puedan saber de todo lo que estuvimos hablando, pero fueron puntos muy buenos. Y pues muchísimas gracias por habernos escuchado. Muchas gracias a la gente que nos vio en Facebook Live. Muchísimas gracias Rick Manuel Astorga, Verónica Herrera, Celeste García, Ángel Contreras. Muchísimas gracias a todos que nos vieron. Y pues nos despedimos y estamos pues de vuelta el próximo sábado. El próximo sábado vamos a tener una entrevista con el mago de Joliet, que nos va a contar un poquito de su vida y cómo pues se inspiró para ser mago, su carrera y todo eso. Entonces esperamos que nos escuchen el próximo sábado. Pero me despido con ustedes. Mi nombre es Samantha Ante y nos vemos el próximo sábado en A Toda Voz.